This is Josh White with JW Math Tutoring, and today's video is going to focus on Digital SAT Practice Test 1, the math section, and specifically Module 2A, which is the easier of the two possible modules you can have for the second part of the math section. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this video will most likely be longer than the allotted time limit for this section, and that's because I like to try to show as many methods as possible to solve the questions that you come across on the math section of the SAT. Of course, if you like this video, like my other videos on my channel, please do make sure to click the thumbs up on it and sign up to subscribe to the channel and receive notifications as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.
But life is a dream that calculus could never predict.
Okay, so we're now at the start of the second math module, and this is going to be the easier version. So this is Digital SAT Practice Test 1 and what I call Module 2A, okay? The one that is slightly easier than the other Module 2 that you could get on the math section based on how many questions you answer correctly on the first module. All right, obviously there's a separate video where I go through the answers for Module 1 on this digital practice test, so please check that out. And of course, if you like this video and like the channel, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and sign up for notifications as well. So of course, when we start this practice test, you can see it's just got the information about how to complete the student-produced response questions, previously known as the grid ends. But that'll also pop up and be available on the specific problems as well. Okay, so first problem we have here just deals with some basic probability and statistics terms. It just asks for the median of this set of data, and the median is of course the middle value. So the easiest way to do this, since the numbers are in ascending order, is just start at each end, cross them all out, and see what we're left with in the middle. So this has an odd number of items, therefore we have one middle value, and so the correct answer for this is just going to be letter B, 77. All right, now we have a student-produced response question. So on this one, just a basic linear equation. Just really involves one step, subtracting 40 on both sides, and you should get x equals 55. So the answer that you would type in or fill in is just x equals 55. Now on to number 3. They're just asking for the area of a rectangle, and they give you its length and they give you its width. So it's just 17 times 7. Now if you don't know that off the top of your head, then you can just go ahead and use the calculator. The answer is going to be 119. So a correct answer for this one is going to be letter C. For problem number 4 here, we're just basically doing some combining of like terms. So with this expression, the first thing we want to do inside the parentheses, take 4w plus 3w and turn that into 7w. And then we will just do 20w minus 7w and get 13w. So the correct answer for this one is just going to be letter B. Now, problem number 5, they give us a situation that they describe in text between two variables, and a number, and they want you to come up with the equation that represents this. So if we just go through and basically just straight on translate it, we can see that we get the number y, okay, is always goes to an equal sign, and then 84 less than x. So this is going to be, starting with x, we would take 84 away than that, to get 84 less than that. Now, if they had an answer here, up here, that was like 84 minus x, that might be a common, kind of like trick answer that people would choose. But notice there's only one answer choice here that even deals with subtraction, which is what less than indicates. So correct answer for this one is just going to be letter D. Now, question number 6. Here they give you two different expressions that they tell you are equivalent, and they're asking you what to figure out which one what the value of b has to be in order to make these equivalent. So first, I will show you kind of the traditional and straightforward way, and then I will show you an alternate method that you could use after that. So if you take 24 and now on the bottom, the 6x plus 42, if you factor that by pulling out a common factor of 6, notice you get 6 times x plus 7. On the right side, we have 4 equals x plus b. Notice on the top here that 4 times 6 makes 24. Or going in reverse, 24 divided by 6 makes 4. So on the bottom, if you took this parenthesis and you multiplied it by 6, then you would have 6 times x plus b. So if they're equal, everything matches up. Therefore, b has to be 7. So the correct answer would have to be 7. Now, if you weren't sure or for some reason you were having difficulty with this, here's an alternate way that you could do this using picking numbers. So what I would do is I would let x equal 1, okay? And then I would first plug that in. So for the first one, and again, you could just do this all in the calculator, it's going to be 24 over 6 times 1 plus 42. All right, so now I'm just going to go to the onboard calculator and just plug this in to figure out what it is. So we got 24 divided by 6 times 1, which is just 6, plus 42. Okay, and we get 0.5. So the first expression is equal to 0.5. So we'll just jot that down. Now for the next expression, we're going to have 4 over 1 plus b. And for b, we're going to plug in our possible answer choices. So we're going to be looking for the answer choice that gives us 0.5. So if you start with letter A, 7, notice, just expand this out a little bit, there we go. We get 0.5, so we've got the same value. That tells us that 7 is the correct answer. But if we got a different number, of course, then we would go to the next answer choice, and we would try 10, we'd try 24, 252. So that's just an alternate method you could use of picking numbers in order to determine, what the value of b has to be. All right, now for the next one, we have just a basic percentages question here. You're just starting with a total of 300, and basically they just want to know what is 80% of that, because 80% of the seed sprouted. So it's just 300 times 0.8 or times 0.80. That's just going to be 240. So what you would what you would type in, I guess, better way to say it, is just the number 240. Next up, question number 8. Here you are given a distance and you are given speed or rate, and they basically want to know the number of time, number of hours. So the basic equation is like rate times time equals distance. Or if you think about it, if you rearrange it, if you divide both sides by r here, time is basically equal to distance divided by rate. So if you just plug those values in, 24 kilometers, 4 kilometers per hour, therefore he must walk a total of 6 hours. So the correct answer for this one is going to be letter B. Notice you could also do this one just by back solving if you were confused or didn't know the equation. You could say, okay, he walks 4 kilometers per hour. Go to the answer choices. If he walks 4 hours, will that equal 24? Well, no, 4 times 4 is 16. That's wrong. And then you can move on to B, and you can say, okay, 4 kilometers per hour times 6 hours, is that 24 kilometers? Yes, correct answer. So you could also back solve this one if you didn't, know the exact equation or weren't sure how exactly, to, in this case, divide the numbers. All right, next up, problem number 9. Here we have another student-produced response question. So there are multiple ways you could do this. So the way they most likely want you to do this is to recognize that the 6 plus x in this equation is just equal to basically 1/3 of the 18 plus 3x. Or, in other words, what I'm really trying to say is, if you take 6 plus x and you multiply it by 3, that will equal 18 plus 3x. So since they want to know what 18 plus 3x is, you just take both sides of this equation, you multiply it by 3, and then 9 times 3 is just 27. Now, if you didn't recognize that, that's fine. You can go ahead and just solve this equation and get x equals 3, but you do have to remember then that 3 is not your answer. You're taking 3 and you're plugging it into this expression, which would just be 18 plus 3 times 3. Do it on the calculator if you can't do it in your head. 3 times 3 is 9, 18 plus 9, 27. We get the same answer. So multiple ways to do these kinds of problems. But they are, both ways are, relatively easy to do, not particularly complex. Now on to number 10, we just have a basic functions question here. They give you a function. They want to know what the value is when you evaluate this function at 2. So f of 2 just means we plug in 2 for every x. This you could do on the calculator if you don't know it. 2 to the third is 8. 8 plus 9 is just going to be 17. Correct answer for this one is just going to be letter C. And that's it. You're given the input of 2. You're finding the output that corresponds to it. Next up, number 11. For this question, you're given another function, and it's actually a linear function. And basically, what they're giving you here is the total monthly payment, which is the x value, and they want to know, what the total cost would be. So this problem is actually identical to the last problem in that you're given a function, you are given the x value to plug in, and the answer that it's looking for is the y value or the corresponding output. It's just worded differently, it's described differently, but the operation is the same. You're just finding f of 400. So you put in 36 times 400 plus 1,000. If you don't know that off the top of your head, that's completely understandable. Just go to the calculator, type it in. Okay, we get 15,400. Therefore, correct answer is going to be letter C. And that's it. No other work needed for this problem. Okay, here we have another problem with functions, and this is actually the same thing that we've seen on the last two problems. They give you a function, they give you the x value or the input, and you just plug it in and evaluate it and find the output. So just plug in 8 for x, multiply it by 10, add 8 to it, you should get 88 as your final answer. Correct answer is D. So it's basically the same exact skill, 3 problems in a row here. Next up, problem 13. Here we have a basic geometry question. You have 2 lines that are given as parallel, although in reality that doesn't matter for this problem because the 2 angles here are just adjacent angles on one line. They're not, formed by the parallel lines. So these 2 adjacent angles basically form what's known as a linear pair. The sum of them adds up to 180 degrees, because that's the measure of a straight angle, on a straight line. So the value for this is just going to be 47. When you solve this equation, correct answer is 47. No other work, needed after that. Next up, problem number 14. So here we have the equation of a line. It's given in standard form. And this actually requires a little work because they basically want to know about the x-intercept and the y-intercept, and they want to find the value of one divided by the other. So first I'll show you how you could do this by hand, but it also could be easier to find this on the graph of it. So to find the x-intercept, we just plug in 0 for y and then solve. So notice this term drops out. You divide by 7. X-intercept, negative 31 over 7. Y-intercept, you do the opposite. Plug in 0 for x and solve. That drops out. Divide by 2. Y equals negative 31 divided by 2. Okay, Now we have these two values to divide, and we want b over a. So we want the y-intercept value kind of like over top of the x-intercept value, which they labeled a. So if you write this sideways now, let me just erase this and put it next to it. Like you have fraction division, and you do state change flip. What's going to happen is the negative 31s are each going to cancel out, and you would just end up with 7 over 2, or 7 halves. So the correct answer for this is going to be letter D. Now, just to show you on the calculator, if you go through and we graph this line out, so let's expand this just so it's a little easier to see. All right, so the x-intercept, it's right here. It's negative 4.429, and we have the y-intercept at negative 15.5. So if I do negative 15.5 divided by negative 4.429, notice it doesn't come out exactly as 3.5, and that's because I'm not using the exact value for the x-intercept. I'm not using negative 31 over 7. I'm using a rounded form of it, but it is still close enough such that if we look at the answer choices, it's obviously going to be D. That's the only one that is anywhere near 3.49. Like A and B are both out because they're both negative, and C is 2 over 7, which is, like 0.28 something. So even though you don't get the exact value, you could do this whole thing in the calculator just by graphing it, getting the values, and dividing them, and not having to do, all this work that I have on the screen. All right, next question we have is number 15. So in this one, we're doing a concept that they actually saw a couple questions ago, where they give you the speed or the rate, which is 12. They give you the distance, which is 108, and they want to know the time again. So again, it's like rate times time equals distance, or the time is equal to the distance divided by the rate. So if we just fill in those values again, 108 is the distance, 12 centimeters per second is the rate. You just divide that. If you don't know it off the top of your head, you can just do it on the calculator, but it comes out to 9. Correct answer is letter A. Again, you could back solve this. You could say, okay, 12 centimeters per second times, and go through the answer choices, times 9 seconds. Does that go 108 centimeters? Okay, yes, it's correct. And you can check out the other ones as well and just confirm that they're not correct. If you can't remember the equation, you could use back solving on this. Next up, number 16. So here you have a basic, just a basic linear equation that they're asking you to set up. So you have $165 total. So basically the equation is going to be equal, to 165. 37 is the down payment, or kind of like the initial payment, and then the monthly payments are $16 each, and they make P of them. So it's kind of like you have $16, a $16 payment. The number of them we make is P, so we would multiply those. Then we also have to add the $37 initial payment, and that's going to equal the total cost of the microscope. So correct answer for this one is just going to be letter C. All right, next up, problem number 17. Here you have a table which has some x and y values in it. Tells us it's a linear relationship, meaning a line, and they want to know which is the equation of this line. So there's multiple ways you could do this. I would just say first, the traditional way is we could pick 2 points. We could find the slope. So I would do maybe like 18 minus 13 and then 0 minus 1. That would give me 5 over negative 1 using the slope formula. So the slope of this line is going to be negative 5. So right off the bat, A is out and B is out. And now if we go to the chart here, notice the y-intercept is going to be 18 because that's the value when x is 0. So correct answer here is going to be D. I mean, You don't necessarily need to calculate the exact slope, because if you look at these values and you notice that as x gets bigger from 0 to 1 to 2, y gets smaller, that should be a clue or a hint that the slope is going to be negative, because the y values are going down as the x values are going up, meaning a negative slope. So that would eliminate a and b right away without even knowing the exact value. And then you're given the y-intercept here of 18, so therefore you could get to d without even needing to calculate the slope, just to save time. Next up, problem number 18. Here we have a quadratic equation. And basically, they want to know which of these numbers in this quadratic equation represents the height that the object started at, basically from which it was kicked. So all that basically means is when t equals 0, like what is its height? What is its initial height? So if you just plug in 0 here, notice, and I just change this to the 0 instead of the t squared. The first term is going to just go to 0 and drop out. The second term is going to go to 0 and drop out. All you're left with is a 9. So the correct answer for this is just D, letter 9. And this is also a shortcut for any quadratic function. The constant term at the end will always represent like the initial height, or starting point, when you're talking about a quadratic function for something that's like, say, going up in the air, and coming down. All right, problem number 19. Here you have this is another quadratic function, and they want to know which of these correspond to the values for this function. So basically, all of them have something that's overlapping, so you would most likely need to check multiple multiple values. You're not just going to be able to check one number and then eliminate it. But let's start with 1. We'll just plug that in. Basically, we're going to back solve this. So 1 squared minus 3 is just 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. So 1, negative 2 is a point on this graph. So A is gone, C is gone. Now, notice that for B and D, they both have the same y values, for 2. They're both 2, 1, so don't bother checking that. We need to check 3 and see, is it 3, 3, or is it 3, 6? So plug in 3. 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 3 is 6. That means the point on this function we're given is 3, 6. Correct answer is going to be letter B. You could also, too, just another way if you didn't want to go through all this work, it might be quicker to bring up the calculator, expand it out, graph x squared minus 3, and then sorry, there's our graph. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, and then just, kind of like slide along here and see, okay, at 1 it's at negative 2. We know that at 2 it's at 1, and then where is it at? At 3. Right up here, it's at 6. And you can get the 3 points that way, and then, that would lead you to answer choice B as well. All right, number 20, we have another question which is related to functions. So this one, there are, again, multiple ways you could do this. I'm going to show each method. Basically, these are your 2 points you're given. It's like you're given 0, 8, and you're given 1, 12. And they're basically just asking, what's the equation of this line? So the traditional way, which would be find the slope, 12 minus 8, 1 minus 0. Okay, the slope is 4. And also notice the y-intercept is 8 because we're given 0, 8 right here. So B is just going to equal 8. If you didn't recognize that, you could plug in one of these points along with 4 for M, and you could solve it out, that way. So like 8 equals 4 times 0 plus B. Okay, B equals 8. So we've got the slope. We've got the y-intercept, so it's just y equals 4x plus b. Since it's in function notation, okay, we could just write f of x equals, or not 4x plus b, 4x plus 8. F of x equals 4x plus 8. Correct answer is letter D. Now, alternate ways to solve this. So first, you could take these points and you could plug them in and you could eliminate choices based on that. So if I start with like 112, right? If I plug in 1 here, 12 times 1 is 12 plus 8 is 20. Okay, that doesn't work. Here, 4 times 1 is 4. That's not 12. Wrong. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 12 is 16. Wrong. Okay, and I'm left by D by process of elimination. Again, I was plugging in 1 for x and seeing if I got 12 as my output. Okay, I was basically back solving it. Or a third possible method is you could graph these lines in the calculator and then see, do these points exist on each of them that you graph? You know, do they each have 0, 8? Do they each have 1, 12? And you would find that D is the only one that has both of them. So there's technically, multiple ways you could solve this one, depending on whatever's most comfortable for you, whatever you think is, quickest and easiest. All right, next up, problem number 21. Here you're given a formula that has 3 letters in it, and they want to know which expresses k in terms of j and m. So what I think is the easiest way to do this is to just rearrange the formula and solve it. So for example, that would mean subtracting 14j on both sides. We get 5k equals m minus 14j. And then just divide by m. So we can divide the whole thing by 5. Excuse me, not divide by m. Divide everything by 5. So we get k equals m minus 14j over 5. Correct answer is going to be letter A. Now, an alternate way to do this would be picking numbers. In this particular example, I don't think it would be quicker or easier, but again, it could work. So here's what I would do. I'm going to let j equal 1 and k equal 2. And then based on those, I'm going to find the value of m. So if j is 1, that means I've got 14 times 1. K is 2 plus 5 times 2. That's 14 plus 10 is 24. So that means m has to equal 24. So now I'm going to go down to these answer choices, and I'm going to plug in just m and j, which are 24 and 1, and see which of these equals k, which is 2. So answer choice A would be, and actually I'll just go on, might as well just go on the calculator and do it there. So for answer choice A, we've got, let's see here, 24 minus 14 times 1 divided by 5. Okay, notice we get 2 for that, so that appears to be the correct answer, but we'll just check the others just to be sure. For the next one, we have 1/5 times m, which is 24, minus 14 times 1. Okay, that is equal to negative 9.2. That is not correct. Third one, we've got 14 times j, which is 1, minus 24, divided by 5. We get negative 2. Again, we're looking for positive 2 because we chose positive 2 for k. So that's wrong. And now for the last one, 5 times 24, this is obviously not going to be correct, minus 14 times 1. Okay, 106, that's wrong as well. So you can see picking numbers is an alternate strategy that you could use here because we have formulas. You're going to pick j, you're going to pick k. Based on those values, you're going to find m, and then you go to the answer choices, plug in your m, plug in your j, and see which of those equals the k that we chose, which was just 2. All right, the last problem from this module 2A, the easier module from Digital SAT Practice Test number 1, deals with a right triangle and basically trigonometry. So you have this triangle RST, and it's similar to triangle UVW. So, and they want to know what the value of tan W is. So it seems confusing, but it's actually not going to be that bad at all. So we know that RST is a right triangle. And also notice here that TR is 584, which means it's the longest side or the hypotenuse. That means that S has to be the right angle because S is technically across from side TR, and then we can just label like this is 384 and this is going to be, let's see, 440. Okay. Now, for triangle UVW to be similar, that means it has the same angles and that the sides are proportional. So RST, so that means R is corresponds with U, S corresponds with V, and T corresponds with W. Okay, and they even tell us that in the, they tell you that in the problem, but if you didn't know that, it's the order, matches up that the letters are given in. Okay, so what's the value of tan W? So the thing is, the tangent of W is going to be equal to the tangent of angle T because these two angles will have the same measure. So really, this problem is asking for the tangent of angle T. So what's the tangent of angle T? Well, it's just going to be the opposite side. So tan T is opposite over adjacent, which is just going to be 440 over 384. Now notice that's not any of the answer choices. However, I do know it's automatically going to be D because notice in this fraction the top is larger than the bottom, and in choices A, B, and C, the bottom is larger than the top. So I could eliminate those just based on that. But if you wanted to actually confirm it, what we could do is we could go to the calculator. We could do 440 divided by 384. Okay, notice it comes out to whatever that decimal. And now you could go through and you could type in the answer choices and see which one, matches it. So you could also do 55 divided by 48. Notice we get the same value. 1.1458333. Okay, and that just confirms that the correct answer for this one is going to be, letter D as well. So that was basically Module 2A of Digital SAT Practice Test 1 in the Bluebook app. If you have any questions or comments or feedback or anything, please feel free to leave them below. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, if you like this video and my channel, please do click the thumbs up on this video. Also, subscribe to my channel and sign up for notifications. Otherwise, the next video that I'll be posting will be Module 2B from the same test, which will have some of the same questions that were featured in this, basically in this module. But it will also have a lot harder ones as well because 2B is the harder section overall. So that should be posted very shortly.